The real drama? It's not on screen, it's how bad the writing has become. If there's one thing The Young and the Restless is committed to, it's testing the audience's patience with storylines that defy logic, emotional continuity, and basic screenwriting competence. Take Harrison, for example, a child with the emotional consistency of a goldfish. He barely blinked when his grandfather died, had no visible reaction to his mother being carted off to prison, and couldn't care less when his former stepmother Victoria disappeared from his life. Summer? Who's that? But the minute Claire, Kyle's flavor of the month, exits stage left, he's inconsolable. And don't get started on his one-week mourning period for Diane when she went into hiding. It's like the writers spun a wheel of who should Harrison miss today and called it character development. Then there's Kyle, trailing after Claire like a lovesick teenager who's just discovered feelings. Watching him whimper through this so-called romance arc is so exhausting. Viewers are speed-forwarding entire episodes just to avoid the second-hand embarrassment. Maybe the real mystery is how long the producers expect audiences to tolerate this repetition disguised as drama. And while we're on the subject of dragging things out, 2 full hours of characters pacing around some dump site and 2 entire episodes dedicated to the most lifeless wedding in daytime history. Someone alert the daytime Emmys. Apparently, filler footage is now its own genre. As for Matt Clark, if he actually paid for that face, he's owed a refund with interest. Aging 30 years for the price of plastic surgery? Now, that's a twist no one asked for. Let's also raise the eternal question: how exactly is Victor related to Harrison? The writers seem as confused as the audience, but that hasn't stopped them from acting like this convoluted family tree still makes sense. Occasionally, a bright spot appears. Diane's Thanksgiving look? Elegant, understated, and refreshingly real. Gray hair and all. Proof that you don't need to dip your head in peroxide to look polished. Contrast that with Christina's original stripper-chic dress, thankfully swapped out for something with dignity, and Amy's fantastic wig, and you get glimpses of style in an otherwise style-deprived show. But back to the main issue. The writers, or rather, the apparent lack of them. Watching Nick and Sharon investigate the Nick and Sienna situation feels like watching the Scooby-Doo gang on decaf. Endless clue hunting, zero momentum. The dialogue is flatter than ever, sets are uninspired, and even basic medical plotlines are wildly inaccurate, a fact that doesn't go unnoticed by viewers with actual medical knowledge. Meanwhile, characters like Kane and Lily, who once held meaningful arcs, are now referenced in half-hearted callbacks. Remember the baby Kane had with another woman? Lily sure did, long enough to file for divorce and vanish from relevance. Storylines that once anchored the show are now tossed around like leftover plot scraps. And then there's the ongoing Who's More Insufferable contest starring Phyllis and Audra. A rivalry so overplayed, even the characters seem tired of it. Let's not forget Nikki's Thanksgiving speech, which was somehow moving and mystifying at once. Sharon's complete omission from it, despite being in LA with Nick and Noah, felt less like an oversight and more like an editorial comment from the writers themselves. In short, it's time. Time to breathe actual life into the show. Where are the young characters this soap was once known for? They've aged into teenagers and young adults, yet the scripts haven't caught up. Instead, we get nostalgia with no innovation, and legacy characters dragged through uninspired plots like scenery in a stage play no one's watching. After 50 years of viewing loyalty, fans deserve better. Better writing, better set design, and certainly better medical consultants, because at this point, WebMD could write more convincing dialogue. Here's what no one wants to admit about Victor Newman. He doesn't care about family, just control. Thanksgiving in Genoa City. The season of gratitude, gluttony, and conveniently missing children. Johnny, Katie, Connor, Christian. Nowhere in sight. Evidently, only Harrison, the presumed crown jewel of the Newman-Abbott dynasty, was granted a seat at the adult table. Because nothing says holiday warmth, like selectively inviting toddlers based on favoritism. And then there's Nick, the sculpted slab of charisma, or as one might call him this week, Detective Incompetent. Watching him and the others repeatedly shout Claire's name while standing perfectly still, was less a rescue effort and more a tragic game of Marco Polo. Move your legs, people. Missing persons don't usually answer from the couch. But the real Thanksgiving turkey? Victor Newman. Once the patriarch who professed loyalty to family, he now seems obsessed with sabotaging Jack Abbott and keeping Adam leashed to Newman Enterprises, even while Nick frantically searches for his son. Priorities, Victor. Nothing says family first, like sidelining your own children to pursue a decades-old business vendetta. Perhaps the company motto should be changed to Newman Enterprises, destroying competitors before comforting sons. And speaking of misplaced loyalty, could someone please muzzle Harrison's Claire obsession? The kid asks about her like she's Santa Claus. It's grating, repetitive, and frankly unrealistic. Just once, let someone gently explain. No, she is not part of the family. She's not coming back. Now eat your pie. Then there's Daniel, poster child for passive disappointment. Watching him do absolutely nothing as people verbally trample Phyllis, his mother, is stomach-turning. She may be chaotic, but she's still his mother. Instead, he delivers a toast so tone-deaf, it practically erased his own backstory. How do you forget your mom once loved your dad? It's not ancient history, it's the premise of your existence. Yes, Phyllis made a scene. Yes, she was warned. And yes, she's the emotional equivalent of a wrecking ball in a tiara. But Daniel has consistently chosen neutrality over family loyalty. Even when Phyllis promised not to ruin Danny's wedding, and promptly did, he washed his hands of the mess and stood there, Switzerland in a tuxedo. Let's be clear, defending a mother doesn't mean condoning her mistakes. It means not pretending she's invisible at the precise moment everyone else decides to turn her into the punchline of their moral superiority complex. But in Genoa City, emotional consistency is as rare as a peaceful holiday dinner. And family values? Just another marketing slogan, best left on the Newman press release. Victor faked dementia just to test loyalty, and people still call him the patriarch. Nothing says holiday spirit quite like a re-aired wedding from decades ago. This Thanksgiving, The Young and the Restless graciously served viewers a nostalgic rerun of Christine and Danny's first walk down the aisle. A gentler era, when Nikki was still married to Jack, Victor to Ashley, and familiar faces like Scott and Rex graced the screen. For longtime fans, it was a warm, low-stakes holiday gift, like stuffing without the drama of undercooked turkey. But make no mistake, the current timeline is anything but peaceful. Victoria and Nate, once a charisma-deficient pairing no one asked for, are suddenly showing actual chemistry. Who knew? The once wooden dynamic has thawed into something compelling, flirty, even watchable. It's a minor Thanksgiving miracle. Speaking of Nate, Victor's unexpected forgiveness toward him is curious. Baby steps, apparently. 1 minute, Nate's plotting to medically sideline Victor and help Victoria seize control of Newman Enterprises. The next, he's back in everyone's good graces with barely a slap on the wrist. That's gratitude, Newman style. Let's rewind. The entire Victor-Nate feud stems from that gloriously absurd dementia trap Victor set. Faking cognitive decline just to catch his children in a corporate coup? Emmy-worthy pettiness. Nate fell for it, consulting medical colleagues and everything, while Victoria, ever the loyal daughter, tossed him under the bus the moment the trap was sprung. Of course, she later tried to backpedal and smooth things over, but Nate, for once, had the good sense to walk away. Back to Winter/Hamilton he went, dignity barely intact. Now onto the rest of the chaos masquerading as family harmony. Abby and Devin are doing the Thanksgiving dinner circuit. His place, her place. But neither seems to remember they have a child. Dominic is apparently off-screen with Christian, possibly locked in a supply closet, unseen and unmentioned. So much for family first. The Abbott Thanksgiving was, as always, a comforting tradition. But then there's Claire, kissing Kyle, giving Harrison hope, and generally tossing out mixed signals like confetti. If she's trying to rebuild trust, leading people on probably isn't the strategy. Meanwhile, Nikki and Victor delivered their usual sanctimonious toasts, this time preaching about not taking people for granted. Touching, if not for the fact they then immediately forgot to mention Sharon while praying for Nick and Noah's safety. Subtle, almost as if Sharon, a key part of the family tapestry, has become an afterthought. If Victor is the king of emotional stinginess, Nikki is certainly his queen. Also floating in the background is Phyllis, now deeply entangled with Kane in what can only be described as a mutually destructive union. Kane choosing Phyllis over Lily is like selecting a firecracker over a candle, louder, more volatile, and guaranteed to blow up in your face. And since Christelle Khalil, Lily, is going on maternity leave, it's anyone's guess how they'll write her out. Probably off to see the kids again. Another conveniently vague excuse for disappearing from the plot just as things get messier. In lighter news, everyone at Thanksgiving seemed to be sporting the same side-swept hairstyle, likely courtesy of one very busy hairdresser with a single trick up their sleeve. Continuity or cult? Hard to tell. And no, Peter Bergman is not leaving the show. Despite wild rumors, he's simply branching out with a guest role on Apple TV+. Jack Abbott isn't going anywhere, at least not yet. Lastly, a modest proposal. Before anyone makes snide remarks about an actor's appearance, perhaps they should be required to post a swimsuit photo of themselves, especially those over 50. A little humility goes a long way. Happy Thanksgiving, Genoa City. The stuffing may be warm, but the shade is ice cold. Phyllis isn't heartbroken, she's addicted to losing. Apparently, at Danny and Christine's wedding, the budget ran dry after florals and fizz. Guests were treated to champagne and donuts, because nothing says celebration like floral opulence paired with fried dough and no real food. One assumes the feast was symbolic, sweet, empty, and over-decorated. Meanwhile, Harrison delivered the only genuine moment of the episode. The child actor outshone the entire adult cast, and that's not hyperbole. It's a casting department embarrassment. He casually mentioned talking to his mom on video, and for a split second, it sounded like he meant Tara. But no, it was Summer. The writers have evidently scrubbed Tara from collective memory, and no one blinked. Then there's Claire. Is she in love, or just a slow-burning arsonist setting up Audra's downfall? Because this entire Holden romance reeks of long-game revenge. One can't help but suspect Claire is still reeling from whatever mess occurred between Audra and Kyle, and now she's playing Holden like a fiddle while plotting the final symphony. A familiar tactic, Jack and Diane already ran this playbook, staging emotional warfare while the audience debated whether it was real. Phyllis, of course, continues her never-ending audition for most deluded, lurking around Kane and Lily like a Victorian ghost with Wi-Fi, convinced she's got a chance, when clearly, Kane's only got eyes for his family. Phyllis's brand is chasing men who don't want her. She mistakes proximity for possibility and jealousy for romance. Her kiss with Kane didn't hint at love. It hinted at desperation, with a touch of, "Look at me, I'm still desirable," energy. As for Claire and Kyle, there's a suspicion that Claire's sudden shift toward seduction is less about rekindling romance and more about showcasing her evolution. The kiss? A sample platter of the new her. Still the same Claire underneath, but now served with a side of rebranding. On the wardrobe front, Victoria remains the sole beacon of style. The woman could sell real estate or run for office in that dress. It's mystifying that the show hasn't just handed the entire costume department over to her stylist. Meanwhile, Claire's hair consistently looks like it lost a fight with humidity and gave up. Let's talk about Sharon and Nick. Their dialogue today sounded like it was pulled from a dusty VHS tape labeled B-Movie Melodrama, 1997 edition. And Nick's anger? About as convincing as a wet paper bag in a hurricane. He seems seconds away from laughing every time he tries to emote. And yet, despite the nonsense, one presence remains compelling. Victor Newman. Not Eric Braeden, the man, but Victor. That gravel-toned, slow-burning, omnipotent voice has served as a security blanket to generations of viewers. Through chaos, conflict, and poorly lit flashbacks, Victor's voice remains constant, menacing, magnetic, and unmistakably patriarchal. It's no longer about plot, it's about presence. He speaks, and the room settles. For some, it's comfort. For others, it's control. Still, there's a growing appetite to see Victor humbled. Not killed off, but cracked open. A stroke storyline, for example, followed by a painstaking recovery aided by enemies turned caretakers, could finally force some overdue self-awareness. Maybe if he were physically silenced, he'd be forced to listen. But until then, he'll continue storming through boardrooms and family dinners like a monarch with a persecution complex. In contrast, the Abbotts, dysfunctional yes, but oddly self-regulating, keep themselves mostly out of scandal, which might explain why Victor hates them. They reflect everything he can't control: legacy without domination, unity without tyranny. So while the writers throw donuts at weddings and dialogues at walls, some things remain clear. Phyllis will keep chasing ghosts. Claire may be quietly planning a coup. And Victor Newman, voice of gravel and ego, will continue anchoring this circus, whether he's the villain, the hero, or the soothing soundtrack of our collective nostalgia. The real villain on this show isn't Mitch, it's the writers. At this point, it's unclear whether Sharon's eyes are wide from terror, caffeine, or the sheer force of her overacting. One might suggest blinking between monologues, just to maintain basic ocular function. But alas, Sharon continues to emote like every scene is a deathbed confession, which might be more bearable if it weren't so consistently overwrought. And then there's Nick, marching around with that patented Newman entitlement, demanding answers like the world owes him a neatly typed summary of every criminal conspiracy. Unfortunately for Nick, law enforcement doesn't operate like his family boardroom. Perhaps if he spent more time listening and less time barking accusations, he might actually get the information he's after. Instead, he bulldozes conversations, stomps through interrogations, and somehow ends up surprised when people clam up. The cop storyline is a particular exercise in narrative gymnastics, so this officer is pretending to be a dirty cop, but only to Nick? Or is he running a double con on Mitch? Either the writers are playing 4D chess, or they've just completely lost the plot. Speaking of which, why are they openly discussing Mitch's alleged crimes in his own nightclub? Have the characters and writers forgotten what low profile means? Meanwhile, the hostage in captivity trope is beginning to feel less like suspense and more like a contractual obligation. If there's a Newman, odds are they'll be tied to a chair by mid-season. The stakes are never high when the outcome is always the same. Cue the dramatic rescue, cue the hug, cue the sappy piano outro. Rinse and repeat. We can all see the setup from a mile away. Noah will undoubtedly be found just in time to slice the Thanksgiving turkey, because nothing says soap opera payoff like predictability wrapped in melodrama. Even Mitch, who, let's be honest, has every reason to be livid, seems to be the only character displaying anything close to rational emotion. If someone messed with his wife, of course he's going to retaliate, but Nick, ever the emotional sledgehammer, reacts as though he's the only parent with skin in the game. And finally, let's not ignore Claire and her faux-empowered exit from Kyle. She can rehearse her "I made the right choice" lines all she wants, but everyone knows it's only a matter of time before regret catches up to her. Probably by next Wednesday's episode. In short, the show could use fewer hostage scenes, fewer eye twitches, and far fewer monologues about moral superiority. What it desperately needs is a storyline with actual tension, complexity, and restraint. Because right now, the only thing being held captive is the viewer's patience. If we have to watch one more character rise from the dead, we might as well bury the writers. Apparently, invitations are now optional in Genoa City. Kane, ever the charmer, decided to crash Thanksgiving at the coffee house to be near Lily. He wasn't invited, but when has that ever stopped a man with misplaced confidence? Not to be outdone, Phyllis also turned up uninvited, armed with the flimsy excuse of volunteering, as if anyone bought that. Predictably, Phyllis was met with hostility. Again. The woman might as well enter rooms to a soundtrack of raised eyebrows and forced smiles at this point. Lily observed the awkward tension from a distance, as Kane and Phyllis, two experts in bad decisions, bickered over who had the moral high ground. Spoiler, neither did. But then, something shocking happened. Phyllis, the queen of chasing emotionally unavailable men, actually didn't. She's made a career out of throwing herself into lopsided relationships, always the one doing the chasing while men looked over her shoulder for someone else. But this time, she stopped. Back at Kane's hotel-restaurant hybrid, because of course Kane lives in a hospitality-themed purgatory, Phyllis had the audacity to draw a line. She told him to make a choice. That's right. Phyllis Summers, perennial second option, finally declined the role of consolation prize. With dignity and grace, she left Kane stunned, silenced, and most importantly, alone. Bravo, Phyllis. This time, you didn't just walk away. You walked tall. Meanwhile, Claire made her Thanksgiving cameo with the Abbotts, thanks to Harrison's heartfelt plea that she stay for the family blessing. She stayed. She kissed Kyle. Then she immediately decided she wasn't ready for a serious relationship. Classic bait-and-dangle strategy. Claire may not be committed, but she has no trouble stringing Kyle along like a sentimental lapdog. Despite her supposed reluctance, Claire can't stop fantasizing about her night with Holden. The same Holden who lied by omission about what really happened with Audra in LA. Nay, when the truth comes out, and it will, this is daytime television, Claire will find herself far less adored. Kyle, for one, needs to stop playing the loyal doormat. Let's not pretend Claire won't come running back the second he moves on. And speaking of moving on, Lola's potential return could be just the jolt Kyle needs. At this point, even a cactus would be less prickly and confusing than Claire. Claire's game, whatever it is, isn't helping anyone. Certainly not Kyle, who has wasted emotional energy on a woman who appears to be emotionally unavailable and intellectually manipulative. If she's still pining for her West Coast mystery man, she should pack up her snakes and secrets and head back. Genoa City has enough problems without another emotionally erratic ingenue. Moving on to more pressing matters, what was Nina wearing at Christine's wedding, and why did it look like she raided a pioneer woman's attic? And while we're dissecting the evening, who caught the bouquet? And more importantly, what was for dinner? These are the burning questions we deserve answers to. Then there's Victor, who, in his infinite wisdom, has teamed up with Adam to wage war on Jack and Jabot, allegedly using some mysterious AI program. This is a man who thinks subtlety is a weakness, not a strategy. Enter Phyllis, who apparently trusted Victor enough to hand him control of this tech. Or did she? Phyllis may be impulsive, but she's not stupid. Trusting Victor is like giving a fox the keys to the henhouse. Twice. Either she's playing a long con for payback, or she sold him the program outright for a massive payday. Either way, the idea that she'd blindly trust Victor, a man who's tormented half the town, is laughable. If Jabot goes down in flames and Newman Enterprises gets kneecapped in the crossfire, don't be surprised if Phyllis is the one holding the match. With a smile. Meanwhile, Mitch is slowly unraveling. Each interaction with Sharon and Nick reveals a more arrogant, venomous side. He seems hell-bent on emotionally gutting them, and Noah, one petty comment at a time. Nick suspects Mitch is playing mind games at Noah's expense. For once, Nick might be right. Whatever vendetta Mitch is nursing, he's no longer even pretending to be civil. He's just waiting to draw blood. Finally, a broader question. Has Genoa City officially run out of ideas? The writers seem to think plot twists mean recycling the same tired tropes. Kidnappings, druggings, back from the dead miracles. Can someone please hand them a pen and remind them that new characters and original storylines are still an option? Instead of resurrecting every third character, how about introducing someone who hasn't already dated 6 members of the same family? The drama doesn't have to die, but the repetition sure should. Phyllis isn't misunderstood, she's just toxic. And it's time people stopped pretending otherwise. Few characters on The Young and the Restless inspire as much collective eye-rolling as Phyllis. Her relationship arc could be filed under Lifetime movie, Stalker Edition. Have a fling, then latch on like a leech. Jack, Nick, Danny, Kane. Pick a man, any man, and watch her spiral. Year after year, it's the same tedious loop. Sleep, scheme, suffocate. It's not just the writing, though that's a crime of its own, the performance matters too. When Gina Tognoni played Phyllis, there was actual depth, a layered sense of desperation rather than the current version's shrill chaos. Now the character is less complicated anti-heroine and more unhinged ex who doesn't understand boundaries. But Phyllis isn't the only character suffering from narrative malpractice. Enter Harrison. The only on-screen child in Genoa City has somehow become the emotional barometer for the show, and that's a deeply unsettling choice. His obsession with Claire isn't endearing, it's borderline disturbing. But why wouldn't it be? Claire's enabling him, and Kyle, perpetually glued to her side, is setting the standard for unhealthy attachment. Monkey see, monkey cling. Yes, Harrison has endured a laundry list of loss: a mother in prison, a fake father dead, and an adoptive one who vanished without a trace. Sure, trauma explains his attachment, but even in a soap opera, there's a line between emotionally damaged child and plot device with puppy eyes. To his credit, the young actor is more competent than most predecessors. At least he's not wooden like the early versions of Johnny or Connor. Still, even talent can't salvage the fact that his lines sound like they're being sung rather than spoken. He might be a Broadway star in the making, but in Y&R, he feels about as natural as a musical number at a funeral. Meanwhile, the adults flounder in their own incompetence. Kyle and Claire can barely manage themselves, let alone the emotional needs of a child. This isn't parenting, it's negligence dressed up in designer clothing. And for the love of God, someone needs to cut back the kids' sugar intake. With the rate they're tossing muffins and desserts at him, Harrison's not going to make it to puberty without a glucose monitor strapped to his arm. Thanksgiving shouldn't look like a bake sale. If there are 8 slices of pumpkin pie, then guess what? Eat the damn pie. Bringing back Kane isn't nostalgic, it's narrative malpractice. And in the ever-turning wheel of the young and the restless, few storylines have inspired more collective confusion and quiet horror than the brief, bewildering romantic blip between Traci Abbott and Kane Ashby. And now, with Billy Flynn taking over the role and Daniel Goddard freshly axed from General Hospital, the question lingers: will the show revisit that particular fever dream of a coupling? Let's hope not. Allegedly, Kane's conspicuous absence from the canvas for a while had less to do with narrative choices and more to do with off-screen dynamics, particularly those involving the actors behind Kane and Traci. Whether or not that's true, it certainly explains why the show quietly swept that storyline under the rug and left it there. So far, the only acknowledgement of their past dalliance has been Traci's polite confession to Jack and Diane that she once turned Kane down, followed by a hug when the two crossed paths again. That's likely all the closure we're getting. And frankly, that's probably for the best. Still, some fans continue to fantasize about Traci finally receiving her overdue romantic redemption arc, especially after enduring the disaster that was Alan. A light-hearted suggestion floated around. Perhaps a long-lost brother of Esther's could appear, fall for Traci, and stick around. A tidy solution, sure, but the elephant in the room remains: Colleen. If the writers had a modicum of imagination left, they'd realize there's still a plausible way to bring her back and give Traci something deeper than another half-hearted fling. Yet the idea of reviving Kane and Traci, romantically or narratively, remains as awkward now as it was then. Some continue to clutch their pearls over Daniel Goddard's exit, despite widespread consensus that he's neither a strong actor nor a particularly pleasant figure off-screen. Yes, he just got killed off on GH, but that's hardly a compelling reason to resurrect him here. Others insist he should return solely to win Lily back and then vanish again, which feels less like storytelling and more like character taxidermy. Billy Flynn, for his part, has expressed interest in revisiting the Kane-Traci pairing. Admirable effort, but judging by the reactions, it's a ship few want to see set sail again. While Flynn has brought a new energy to the role and undeniably improved Kane's watchability, the casting still feels off. Flynn doesn't read like Kane at all. He reads like someone entirely new, and honestly, that's a blessing. He's softened the character's more grating tendencies and even managed to make Phyllis, of all people, appear likable in their scenes. Still, the confusion remains. Why cast Flynn as Kane when he feels tailor-made for someone like Ronan? Especially considering the show has apparently retconned Ronan out of existence entirely by stating Chance was Nina's only son. The show's lack of direction is showing. Lily's maternity leave effectively puts any rekindling of Lily and Kane on ice. And without her in play, what exactly is Kane doing? Hovering around Phyllis like an accidental love interest? Auditioning as her stepson? One thing is clear, the writers seem to have no idea where this version of Kane is going. But if they're planning on dredging up the Traci storyline again, they'd better have more than a hug and a memory to justify it. Because unless it leads to Traci finally getting a real love story, or Kane exiting stage left for good, it's hard to see the point. They rewrote Sally's past like we've never seen her before, and it's insulting. There's suspension of disbelief, and then there's whatever Sharon and Nick think they're doing. As the search for Noah unfolded, viewers were treated to an electrifying performance of two adults, standing, in one spot, wild-eyed and panting, as if their panic alone might summon him out of the ether. Knock down a door, run through the building, perhaps bribe someone, shout, do anything? No, too radical. Sharon and Nick chose to reenact a live-action mannequin challenge instead. And while Sharon often catches criticism for her wooden delivery and unwavering victim status, Nick's contribution to the scene was no better. His ever-present clenched jaw and growling, "My boy" lines do less to convey concern and more to suggest chronic indigestion. One might think they were auditioning for a parody, not a primetime drama. This storyline has officially tipped into Scooby-Doo territory, minus the charm or actual problem-solving. The recycled plot points, kidnapping, framing, more kidnapping, are bad enough. But the acting has veered so far into exaggerated theatrics that it feels less like storytelling and more like satire. Sharon's high-pitched distress calls and Nick's angry whisper growling seem pulled straight from a spoof. The result? Scenes so devoid of urgency and authenticity, viewers are left mentally checking out, brainstorming grocery lists while these two try to outbrood each other. Meanwhile, in another bizarre rewrite of reality, Sally has apparently been recast as a traveling carny who wandered into Genoa City between funnel cakes and Ferris wheels. According to recent dialogue, she's a woman unfamiliar with hot apple cider and raised exclusively on corn dogs and cotton candy. An impressive diet for someone who once ran a fashion house in Los Angeles, dated high-profile men from two powerful families, traveled to Europe, and managed businesses in town. One might wonder if the writers have developed amnesia, or if they're deliberately trying to make Sally appear unworthy of Abbott family real estate. Because clearly, nothing screams outsider like not being raised on artisanal pumpkin pie and fresh-pressed cider. And yet, despite the insulting rewrite of her backstory, Sally remains one of the few characters with genuine grit. Raised by a struggling relative, she learned to hustle early, carved out her own career, and still finds ways to press forward after business flops and personal losses, including losing a child. She's not a pampered heir. She's self-made. The fact that the show occasionally references her rough upbringing isn't the issue. It's the tone-deaf delivery, making her sound more like a state fair dropout than a seasoned entrepreneur. If the writers want to remind us that Sally didn't grow up in privilege, fine. But let's not pretend she was raised by clowns and acrobats and just now discovered cider and seasonal desserts. Viewers have memories, even if the scriptwriters clearly don't. At this point, the biggest plot twist would be a storyline with believable stakes, emotionally grounded performances, and a character arc that doesn't rewrite someone's entire history just to prop up the elitism of the Abbott living room. Phyllis acts like she has a problem with Kane, but she really has a problem with Lily. On The Young and the Restless, November 26th, Genoa City celebrates Thanksgiving. Phyllis tries to get into the spirit of giving and gratitude, but she's up to her old tricks again. It didn't take her long to find a new archenemy. On Wednesday's episode, Lily and Amy rolled up their sleeves and helped Esther at Crimson Lights. They geared up to give back as Kane walked in. Lily wondered what he was doing there. However, Amy told him he could stay. She felt better after sharing her feelings about Damien's death with Christine and Danny's wedding. Kane threw on an apron as Lily explained what he had to do. Phyllis also showed up to volunteer, which made Lily give up. She gave her apron to Phyllis and left the coffee house. We assumed that Phyllis had redeemed herself. She crashed Danny and Christine's wedding to share a toast with them. Surprisingly, her toast was nice. She could tell that the couple was happy. However, in typical Phyllis fashion, she also claimed that Christine won Danny in the end. It was still sweet, even if she had to throw in a few digs. We had assumed that she got into the spirit of the Thanksgiving holiday. Phyllis assumed Kane wanted to impress Lily with his good deed. He claimed that he moved on from Lily, even though she was there. But Phyllis is the one who had the problem with this because she's jealous of Lily. Speaking of which, she walked into them talking about Kane's new venture. Phyllis told Kane that she doesn't like it when he puts her future into other people's hands. Her company will be bigger and better than his and everyone else's. Meanwhile, Lily entered and admitted that Kane couldn't be that surprised. He already knew what Phyllis was like when he worked with her. Amy didn't want to hear business talk. She was ready for turkey. Meanwhile, Phyllis was also ready to leave. She removed her apron and said goodbye to Kane. He looked on in confusion over what had happened. Phyllis is just using him to get Lily jealous, and she doesn't like that he's still pining over her. Claire's Thanksgiving kiss caught Kyle off guard and shifted the energy at the Abbott holiday table. Their connection may be entering an entirely new phase. In the November 26th episode of The Young and the Restless, Claire delivered the moment that defined the holiday when she leaned in and kissed Kyle on the Abbott porch. What began as a warm, sentimental Abbott family Thanksgiving quietly transformed into a turning point that could reshape Kyle's loyalties, Claire's future, and the delicate balance of trust she has fought so hard to earn. The kiss wasn't impulsive. It came after a day filled with reminders of family, belonging, and the complicated spaces Claire now occupies. And for Kyle, it landed at a moment when his heart may be more exposed than he realizes: the Abbott. Thanksgiving unfolded with the warmth and ritual the family holds dear. Jack stood at the head of the table, guiding them through the tradition of sharing gratitude. Ashley expressed how much it meant to be home again. Diane reveled in feeling like a true Abbott. Billy toasted to family unity. Sally admitted that being included meant more than she could say. Claire listened, moved but cautious, careful not to take her seat at the table for granted. Harrison's enthusiasm dissolved any hesitation Claire had left. His joy at her presence, and his wish that she stay, made her feel woven into this family in a way she never expected. Even Kyle's toast acknowledged her place in the room, calling attention to the forgiveness and grace that helped both of them through their difficult year. It was the closest Claire had ever come to belonging. When she finally prepared to leave, Harrison begged her to stay. She promised she'd return soon, but she needed to slip back to her own family's plans. Kyle walked her out, insisting that her presence truly mattered, for Harrison and for him. Claire's journey has been defined by reclamation of identity, trust, and family. The Abbotts have extended space, patience, and warmth, but this Thanksgiving marked the first time Claire actively stepped into that space, rather than hovering at its edges. Her kiss was not only emotional, it was symbolic. She made a choice to claim a connection instead of waiting for permission to feel it. For Kyle, the moment hit at a time when he's searching for grounding. His year has been full of missteps, heartbreak, and strained loyalties. Claire has become a stabilizing presence for Harrison, but increasingly for him as well. The kiss forces him to examine what he wants, not just what's expected of him. The kiss shifts the dynamic between them in ways neither can ignore. For Claire, it could accelerate her integration into the Abbott family, or complicate the fragile foundation she's built. For Kyle, it sets off a quiet, emotional pivot, just as the Abbotts brace for a new round of conflict with Victor. And for Harrison, who adores her, every move from here matters. The CBS soap stars are spilling some holiday tea, several. The Young and the Restless stars gave fans a treat ahead of Thanksgiving with a video showcasing the side dishes typically served on the holiday. The official YNR Instagram account gave fans something to talk about by revealing the stars from the CBS soap's must-have side dish for Thanksgiving. Melissa Claire. Egan kicked things off by revealing she has two favorite side dishes, mashed potatoes and corn souffle. "So delicious," she said while blowing a chef's kiss. Britton James admitted he has never had canned cranberries after Melissa Ordway declared those are her favorites, along with mashed potatoes. Ordway was shocked at his revelation and invited him over to her house to try some. Courtney Hope is also a fan of mashed potatoes, but she admitted that she has to have them with her other favorite, French toast stuffing. The award for thinking outside the box goes to Jason Thompson, who picked Parody's as his side dish of choice. Mashed potatoes and a slew of gravy are the must-haves for Laura Lee Bell and Michael Damian. Sharon Case made her co-star Joshua Morrow gag with her news that she loves Brussels sprouts. The hilarious footage concludes with a scene flip that features Peter Bergman, Susan Walters, and Michael Mealer wishing fans a happy Thanksgiving. There's no question that mashed potatoes seem to be the clear favorite side dish among Y&R stars. But what is yours? Share your favorite one in the comments section below. The Young and the Restless spoilers reveal that Victor Newman is a mover, a shaker, a dad, husband, and mogul living his best life in the heartland of America, Genoa City, Wisconsin. Well, of course he's going to hit up the Black Friday and Cyber Monday sales, maybe even acquire a corporation or two. Looking at you, Billy Abbott and Kane Ashby. What would billionaire Victor Newman buy on Black Friday and Cyber Monday? After all, he is a man who has everything. That's why his buy lists are dominated by gifts for others. Victor is a giver, not a taker. The first thing Victor would demand is that you purchase his book, I'll Be Damned: How My Young and Restless Life Led Me to America's #1 daytime drama. This post may contain affiliate links. If you click through and make a purchase, we may earn a small commission at no extra cost to you. 1. An auto pen for all the NDAs he has his family sign during the holidays. 2. His own coal mine. 3. The entire storeroom of Crimson Light's coffee beans to make Sharon Newman happy again. 4. Monthly wig subscription box for his beloved wife, Nikki Newman. 5. Antlers and red nose kit for Kane Ashby's choo-choo engine car. Wait, he has one on every continent. How many is that? 6. A bullshit detector for Noah Newman. 7. One extra large bottle of Aqua Velva. That's what Victor smells like, right? 8. A bushel or 3 of broccoli for when that damn Jordan woman comes back, because you know she will. 9. Refurbished bunk beds for his wine cellar/waterboarding pen, because of course Jordan is traveling with Ian Ward. 10. Multi-pack fire extinguisher prevention system, because he does not need to rebuild his damn ranch a third time. 11. Raya dating app subscription for loveless Claire Newman. Did we leave anything out, Y&R fans? Let us know what else you think Victor Newman would buy for his loved ones and for himself for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. The Young and the Restless spoilers and updates tease that Jack Abbott may save Nikki Newman after Matt Clark targets the Newmans. Will Victor Newman finally drop his feud with Jack following a daring rescue? Jack already saved alcoholic Nikki from the awful road she was headed down, but Victor obviously didn't approve of his methods. To shock Nikki into realizing she needed to make a change, Jack intentionally relapsed on pills and went off the rails in front of her. Although Jack's plan worked and got Nikki into rehab, Victor has been blaming Jack for endangering his wife ever since. It's only adding fuel to the feud that Victor's had with Jack for decades. Now Victor's plotting to use the stolen AI program against Jack and hand over Jabot to Phyllis Summers in the end. Jack is putting in every effort to get ready for the impending storm, but there's a limit to what he can accomplish. What Jack truly requires is a method to persuade Victor to abandon his revenge plans. If Jack can find a way to alter Victor's perception of him, it could alleviate the tension and slow down the revenge plot. Y&R may be hinting at a heroic rescue if Jack manages to save Nikki from a villain who is poised to attack the Newman family. Naturally, we're referring to Matt, who is set to arrive in Genoa City once the drama in Los Angeles concludes. The Young and the Restless spoilers indicate that Matt will target the entire Newman family upon his return to Genoa City. This includes Nikki, which means she will likely need a hero at some point. While Victor might come to Nikki's rescue himself, a more compelling narrative would involve Jack stepping in instead. There's even a possibility of a scenario where Victor and Jack collaborate on this, but it's essential for Jack to take charge and be the one to save the day. This way, Jack can earn a measure of redemption in Victor's eyes. If Victor finds out that he may no longer have a reason to complain about Jack endangering Nikki, it could be because he is the very one who saves her. Jack may be the one who prevents her from meeting a tragic fate at Matt's hands. Can you imagine how thrilling it would be to witness Jack swoop in to save Nikki just when Matt arrives in Genoa City? Would that act of heroism be sufficient to persuade Victor to abandon his vengeful schemes against Jack? It's possible that Victor might adjust his strategies if Jack manages to deliver some life-saving news about Nikki, so stay tuned for what's next. The Young and the Restless spoilers are in for Wednesday, November 26th, 2025. In tomorrow's episode, fans can expect Ashley Abbott to return. Lily Winters gives the Winters a family reminder. Plus, Victor Newman keeps a secret from Nikki Newman. Keep reading, and let's talk about what is coming up in the CBS soap opera. Let's start off with Lily. It seems that she will run into Kane Ashby. In the past, fans saw Phyllis Summers and Nick Newman packing meals for those in need. Other years, it was Nick and Sharon Newman. So, it's interesting that Kane is doing some volunteer work for those less fortunate. Kane is likely hoping this move will help repair his tainted image, especially to those he cares about. However, Lily probably sees it for exactly what it is, a PR move. Lily also isn't too impressed with Kane moving on with Phyllis. Later, Lily gives the Winters family a reminder about family. At the ranch, Victor is keeping a huge secret from his wife. Nikki mentioned getting off the phone with Nick, but feeling he was keeping something from her. When the blonde brought it up to her husband and daughter, she was quickly reassured. Victoria Newman brushed it off. Meanwhile, Victor, who knows what's really going on, claims that Nick sounded just fine. Of course, Victor doesn't want to unnecessarily worry anyone until he knows for certain what's going on. It is Thanksgiving, but after the holiday, Victor should come clean. Hopefully, Noah Newman will be found by then. The Young and the Restless, spoilers for tomorrow's episode, reveal that Ashley finally comes home. Traci Abbott, Diane Jenkins Abbott, Jack Abbott, and even Harrison Abbott are thrilled to see Ashley home again. Even Claire Grace Newman is there with Kyle Abbott. Everyone will be wondering how Ashley's mental health treatment is going. The blonde seems to be in really good spirits in the preview clip, so that's a good sign. However, it is also teased that the Abbott family will have to deal with some drama. Could there be a strike on Djibouti on Turkey Day? Which storyline are you looking forward to seeing the most on Wednesday, November 26th, 2025?